Those who have been with the narcissist for a long time end up reaching that point where they lose hope in the narcissist actually changing or becoming that person who they pretended to be at the beginning. It's kind of like the narcissist's true character, which their significant other repeatedly saw but what didn't want to believe was real. It becomes inevitable that the significant other accepts that toxic version is actually the real them, and that version of them which occasionally gives breadcrumbs and this positive reinforcement very intermittently, that's not the real narcissist, that's not the real persona behind the narcissist, and that's just a facade to keep them hooked. And when people sometimes accept that the narcissist is not going to change, that in fact the person has been unfair towards them, and usually they wouldn't have the term narcissist in their kind of mental vocabulary. They would just think, oh, this person is messed up, has problems, is disordered in some way, has some kind of psychopathic trait. People tend to think of those terms instead of thinking narcissism, because narcissism is something you really only switch on to once you've done research on. But when the significant other does reach that realization and say they start to put their foot down in a way where they're just not going to tolerate certain things anymore. They're not going to put themselves out in the same way anymore that the narcissist once was able to take advantage of. That's when the narcissist looks at the person and thinks, okay, you know, a lot of times if you've been with somebody for a long time and you won't put up with the shit anymore, a lot of times for one reason or another, maybe you have children together, maybe you are financially dependent, maybe you've bought a house together, have dogs, pets, cats, birds, rats, whatever, all that stuff together, snakes, spiders. You just don't, it's not easy to detach and break up from that. So a lot of people, they would just kind of become a bit rebellious. It's almost like they become a bit more, outwardly explosive towards the narcissist when the narcissist starts acting up. And what that does is sometimes the significant other doesn't really have it in them to leave the relationship, but they also feel like they have nothing to lose because they've already pretty much been to the darkest of places and pretty much lost their sanity, and they don't want to go there again. So they stick with the narcissist in the same household, but the narcissist isn't getting the same supply from the person. The narcissist is not getting their needs met in the same way. And a lot of times that kind of new reality for the narcissist will cause them to think, well, you know, is it really in their interest to keep it up? Is it really a winning situation for them like it once was? So narcissists, they do try to find other people. They try to find people who take on the role of the old version of you. And that's something they do so often when they cannot get that old version of you back because they've broken you too much. They've turned you into this rebellious person who would never go back to their old version again. So, it could be the case that the narcissist discards you. It could be the case that they give you lots of these prolonged silent treatments while they're hunting out new supply. But, if you take a situation where the narcissist realizes that you're not really cutting it anymore, and maybe there's somebody else who has potential of being your replacement, so they kind of move on to this new person. They realize, they try to mold that person into you. They try to elicit certain behaviors, thoughts, feelings from that other person that mimics the old version of you that supplied the narcissist very well. And what the narcissist realizes is that even a lot of people who kind of would entertain them in a more superficial level, a lot of people who might be willing to have some form of relationship with the narcissist, but when the narcissist tries to take it to the next level, where that person is that persona that helps them get all their basic supply needs met, they can't quite force that out of the other person. Maybe there's something about the other person, maybe they don't have the same level of empathy as you. Maybe they don't have the same nurturing abilities that you had. Maybe they don't have the right kind of personal trauma, which makes them susceptible in being taken advantage of in certain ways that you did. Of course, it wasn't to your advantage, but it was to the narcissist's advantage because they exploited you in certain ways because of that. And a lot of times that's where the narcissist realizes that, it sucks pretty bad for them because they can't really get the replacement of you. Not the new and improved you. They can't really find the replacement of the old you because not many people are cut out for that. Not many people will stick around and entertain the narcissist if they consistently try to force that person to accept the position of being used and abused and just very exploiting, unfair, toxic ways. And of course, that's a hard realization for them because they don't self-regulate very well. And they can have 10, 20, 30 kind of superficial supply people who supply them in this way, supply them in that way. But if they don't have that one core supply who helps them get all their basic needs met in a way that really nourishes their broken soul. And of course, to nourish their broken soul, you have to be willing to give up your soul and fall into a dark place. But the thing is, it often happens that a part of them thought that they can make anybody become their slave. But then when people don't accept that role of slave, they draw the line somewhere. Everybody's got limits of what they're willing to put up with. And then when the narcissist faces the other person at their limit, they find themselves at a loss. And strangely enough, sometimes narcissists, they will try to go back to a former supply to try to make the former supply think that they've changed. Somebody who they saw once had the potential of helping them get their needs met in all the right ways, a lot of times they will go back to that person and just try everything in their hat of tricks to get that person to revert to their old succumbing ways. And of course, it doesn't always work out very well. Because narcissists don't like to accept that most people out there, the vast majority of people out there, won't morph into their perfect supply. Because people have a certain level of independence. People have a certain level of self-worth, self-respect. And people notice when they're being taken advantage of. And narcissists, they feel offended. They feel like the world's an unfair place when people aren't willing to fully sacrifice themselves for them. But what you need to know is once you've kind of come out of that place of being that person who's willing, to bend over backwards and do everything for them at always at your expense, and you start to have certain boundaries, a healthy level of self-respect, then you should never entertain them again, because all they're going to try to do is test you and test you and test you some more to see if they can tear down your self-respect, to see if they can tear down your self-worth, to see if they can enslave you again. Because to be quite honest, they don't really have any other choice. It's them and their survival. Thanks for watching.